Good afternoon. I'm feeling great. I think the moment I got over with Clat and pre-boards, my family sort of forced me to get out of the house and go on a trip. So I'm in the mountains and I'm feeling great actually.
That's amazing. So you're a mountain person. That what you have told us in the first sentence.
Yeah, I'm a mountain person. I'm a winter person.
Okay.
That's always been the case.
Okay. So how would you like to introduce yourself here?
Um, I think I'm someone who has always been curious and likes reading, and also someone that likes engaging with people and talking to people and finding out more about them. And uh, when I can't find people to talk to when I'm lonely, I just turn to books. So that is how I would like to introduce myself, I guess.
Okay. So that was a very short and crisp introduction at the same time highlighting all your interests about reading, which is one of the key things for CLAT preparation. So let me move to this part where I ask you how you started preparing for CLAT, what made you to prepare for it?
Uh, so since I was a child, I started looking for a like career pretty early on because I knew that people at the end have to find out something to do for themselves. My mother was an engineer, but she stopped working after I was born, and my dad was a businessman who stayed away from home. So there was no really role models I could take from a parental point of view. I could obviously learn from them in other avenues of life, but career wise there was nothing really that I could pick up. So I started looking at other people, basically people in fictional media, people in books, people around me as well. And you know uh, I was sort of I started idolizing a few key political figures, a few fictional characters, and also a few real people that I met who were lawyers. And I started growing a fascination towards the subject itself. This solidified into a more from a fascination, it transferred into an interest where I started reading about law as a subject, especially when I opted for legal studies as a subject in school, because I understood that law is so much more than rules that you're supposed to comply with, because it is an area of civic action. It is also an area of interpreting world developments, whether those are scientific or cultural or social. It is basically also law is related to almost all fields, which gave me an avenue to look at to read about a lot of other subjects without feeling guilty about it, because I could just, while preparing for CLAT, I could just justify it as, oh, I'm increasing my reading speed, or oh, I'm trying to get to know about a new subject. So there, that is where my understanding of law transferred into basically a goal when I saw the CLAT system or like of entering into law colleges, and I thought, this is fair. Like it tests a student's aptitude in almost all areas, because I would have to face the fear of doing maths, and also all the other sections are pretty interesting to me and they appeal to my skills. So that is where it turned into a goal of trying to do as well as I can in this exam, and uh, also trying to become a lawyer, because I think it's a subject that is both, it is professional in nature, and it is also lucrative, which is important, but it is also like significantly academic, where you can transfer to an academic career later if you want.
So this was very enriching to listen from you. Myself, a law student, it makes me go back to the time I decided to choose law, and it is very inspiring to listen to you at this point of time. I hope that this inspiration of yours continues and grows many folds through your law school journey. Next question that I have for you is what do you think about dealing with sections in the examination? Did you have any certain strategies for specific sections? Or were you definitely not, but I am pretty sure you must be going through a certain strategy before when you appeared for the examination. So please highlight on those.
Yeah, so I gave the CLAT twice, once as a trial in class 11 and then later in class 12 as well. And both times, coincidentally, I end up going through the paper in the order that it was presented. I think, like obviously everyone should attempt sections that they're comfortable with, or attempt sections that they find difficult in the beginning and leave for some for later. But the main important point of contention is not which section you attempt in which order, but rather how quickly you can understand how difficult it is, your aptitude in it, and how quickly you should quit and move on to a different question in the section, or move on to a different section altogether and come back to it later, or not come back to it later if you have to choose. So assessing your skills is the most important part of the exam, because that is, it's almost a guarantee that you're not going to attempt all questions, and you should start off from that assumption, and then try to optimize the questions that you're choosing to attempt according to your skills. So that is a very important skill, to have to know, okay, just by looking at a question, this is a question I could solve, and this is a question that I could solve but it will take time, and also this is a question I just cannot solve within the restraints of time in this paper. So taking all of those three factors in, you can create three levels of questions, and make sure you definitely solve all the questions you can definitely solve within a reasonable time. Try to attempt questions that you can solve within a more time period later, and then leave questions that you think you cannot solve absolutely for the last minute if you have time remaining. uh, you know Instead of trying to zoom through the paper and trying to attempt the last category questions quickly because you're not understanding it, because that will increase your negative marking. So it is important to quit sections at the right time and come back to them later if required. So my first year of preparation, I focused on the core competency of English, legal, and logic, which all three sections at the end of the day are reading comprehension. You have to apply certain different skills here. In English, it's mostly reading comprehension skills plus some basic English skills like vocabulary and grammar. In logic, it's reading comprehension skills plus critical and verbal reasoning. And in legal, it's basically at reading comprehension with a legal element to it, because at the end of the day you're supposed to pick out a rule and apply it. You're still looking for a principle within the passage. So all three of these are reading comprehension. So I doubled down on trying to prepare for reading comprehension as much as possible by increasing my reading speed, by increasing my vocabulary range, and by increasing the like amount of topics that I have read on. The fastest way to do this was already double down on my reading habit of reading magazines, news articles, books, etc., but also um, s- specifically solving GMAT, uh, CR, and RC questions, because those provided me with a wide variety of topics and tend to be of generally a higher level of difficulty than undergraduate level examinations. So they prepared me for the most difficult range of um, reasoning questions. That was my strategy for the first three sections. For GK and maths, which most of my skills in GK and maths were picked up in the second year, in GK I just tried to read as thoroughly as possible. However, it did not pay off in this paper. Compendiums, targeted GK product, preparation, or even reading from sites like GK Today and all sort of paid off. But what paid off more was being generally aware of what is happening in the world, keeping up with the news, scrolling through the timeline sometimes. Being online and aware also played a role. So I don't think you can make a strategy for the GK section, but you can still try your best and should not give up. And maths, I just try to focus on questions from banking exams, because those are the type of questions that come caselets and quantitative aptitude questions rather than hard maths. So I try to minimize my time by trying to use different methods to calculate fast. And for maths, GK, and all of these sections, I was helped a lot by all the material that was provided on the Lighting Dreams uh, group, but also my personal mentor, Mr. Rajni Singh, who I attended coaching with for the 2 years.
That is a very enriching to hear again. I mean, what you have trying to tell here is something that, as a CLAT aspirant, everyone must be relating, and everybody through their preparation should incorporate these tremendously, beautifully foolproof methods to crack CLAT moving forward. Since CLAT is an examination, which, according to me speaking, I think it's more about the execution, like how you prepare for the exam. As you also mentioned, the assessment part of it is very important. So, what do you think? Mocks also form a very significant part of the assessment because that is one way you can automatically judge yourself. And CLAT mocks are very famous, or maybe ill famous, I don't know, because every coaching institute, even we at Lighting Dreams, tend to somehow make it a very weekly thing, or at least a bi weekly thing. So, what was your mock frequency, and how did you go about mocks and the analysis?
Yeah. So I think with mocks, I tried to take the widest variety of mocks possible. if anyone is starting off with mocks, I would recommend them to take at least 2 or 3 past papers of Clat first, because that is your most accurate assessment of the paper. Because if you start off with some coaching mocks, right, like some mocks from some coaching right off, you might have a very inaccurate assessment of what the paper is going to look like. Doing a past paper will give you an idea of what the exam is actually like and what skills it's testing. So try to solve some brilliant papers like the 2020 paper, which was an incredibly difficult paper. This year's paper would be a good paper to solve. 2017 and 19 papers are also good. So these papers are papers that you can solve. You can also try to attempt a paper from the older pattern. That is fine, but try to attempt papers definitely of the new pattern, which was started from 2020. Uh, so that should be where you start, like past papers, and then you should move on to solve mocks from as many coachings as you can. Even if you attend one coaching, do not restrict yourself to solving just mocks from that coaching, because what would happen is that and you can generally score very well if you're paying attention in class and reading the material that they're providing, which is very good, as you should. But that is definitely not the material that the consortium would restrict itself to while making the paper. So it will distort your understanding of your skills. You might score very high in GK, and your total overall score would be very high because you're scoring 30 35 in GK, and you do not have an accurate assessment of what your skills are, or you get accustomed to the kind of logical questions or the kind of English question, and there is an all of the above. You take the all of the above, it's going to be correct. So you're reducing your time in one question, a question that could have perhaps even taken 2 to 3 minutes, because it's a range of options and you have to see which one is true and which one is not, to 0 seconds by just taking all of the above, and you're getting a correct mark, which is definitely a gross overstatement of your skills. So do not attempt mocks from only one coaching. Try to take a diversity of mocks. Subscribe to mock packages from these different coachings, or there are other ways to access those mocks as well. Apart from that, how to assess? Here I am guilty as well. I took so many mocks, especially in the second year. In my first year of preparation, I was much more balanced, but I was still not analyzing my mocks enough because I was simply lazy. I just tried to look at the mistakes and quickly just go through the questions if I wanted. I was not properly analyzing my mocks. In the second year, I just took so many mocks that became a very difficult exercise in itself. But in the last 3 months, I realized, oh, I have given all these mocks, but I haven't learned a lot from them. And I saw all the people around me taking advantages of the fact that they had analyzed the mocks, realized their mistakes in, especially in GK and maths. They had gone back and solved the questions that they couldn't in maths, and they solved the questions they couldn't in GK. So that expanded their knowledge right out of the bat. But also properly analyzing your questions in logic, legal, and English can make you understand, oh, these are the logical fallacies I'm committing again and again, or this is a mistake, like I'm reading difficult passages too fast, or I'm giving too much time to easy passages, etc., etc. Mistakes that you can realize when you analyze your mocks. So in the last 3 months, I spent a lot of time going back to old mocks, even mocks I had given a year ago, and trying to see what mistakes I made, and that paid off in the final exam. Even though I wish I had done that sooner or at the time that I was giving the mock itself.
Okay, that's a fair statement coming from you. I guess most of us do have some mistakes to look forward to. A good learning experience. As we all cannot actually get into the minds of the makers of the paper, there is this one question that I'm going to ask, which I will make it very simple for you. Uh, for an examination, it is more important for a competitive examination. It is more important to know what are the things you must not do. So tell me three things that we must not do for CLAT and two things that we should definitely do for CLATs.
Okay. I can tell you what we must not do by telling you what I did for ALET. So, on the night before the exam, ALET exams, 9 hours before the ALET exam at 2 a.m., I was out with my friends and I was partying at someone's house. And I realized, oh no, exam. So I rushed back home. I did not get a proper good night's sleep because I was anxious, doubly anxious so because I had messed up, despite preparing hard for ALET as well, because I took the exam too lightly. And then I woke up in the morning. I chose uncomfortable clothes in a hurry. I got ready. I got to the examination center very confused. I was not carrying proper stationery. It was spilling out of my pockets. I was anxious about whether I had carried my identity card. Generally, everything about the execution of the exam for me was bad. And then they presented a paper pattern which was changed from last year. I panicked in the exam, even though looking back, anyone could have done well in that paper if they just applied the same strategy they applied to A-Late earlier, which is to solve. For me, it was to solve all the English questions, move on to GK, and then try to do as many logical questions I could. But because they presented the English section and the logical section in a combined form, that created an artificial compulsion in my mind to solve both of those questions together rather than as different sections. So what happened is that I panicked and I scored low. My rank wasn't what I expected it to be. If I recall, it was either 193 or 194. Uh, so I messed up in ALIT, and those are lessons I applied to CLAT. I stopped studying for CLAT one like the day before CLAT. The day before that, in the night, I stopped studying for CLAT. I did not touch any material. I did not talk to anyone who could tell me new information about CLAT. I just focused on trying to keep a calm head on that day. So I attended a few classes, last minute classes, which are generally pep talks, to try to get in the right mindset. And on the morning before CLAT, I went out to play basketball for 3 hours. I played basketball, if I recall, and I did not get off the court until I was convinced that I'm ready to give the exam and I'm calm. And then I went into the hall and I was ready. I was not anxious. I was not. I was prepared for any kind of paper that they were going to present, because even if the sections change at the end of the day, they can only give you a piece of paper with questions on it and that you're supposed to solve. They can't hand you a bomb and ask you to defuse it. So you don't have to get that anxious. Uh, Unlike ALET, which was totally a bomb. So uh, yes, so three don'ts is: take your exam seriously, if especially if you prepared for a long time for it. Do not mess up your mindset in the last days. Try to remember and recall why you started preparing in the first place, and do not lose hope. Second is, definitely make sure that you're comfortable while giving the exam. For example, if there is an invigilator that is talking, or if it's too cold, try to point that out before the exam starts itself. And also develop these habits before. Try to give mocks in different environments, in slightly noisier environments than normal, in slightly colder or hotter environments, in different
One of the
places.
other purposes of the mocks is to get yourself to different situations.
Yes. Try to wear a watch and check the time. Try to accustom yourself to the fact that you will not exactly get 2 hours, always slightly less than that. So try to, make someone come and make you sign a paper in the middle of your mock. I had my mom do that many times. Also, disturb you. That is important. So that is the second thing. Get comfortable while giving your mocks and also in the exam itself. And the last one would be to make sure that you try to, in every mock, you don't sort of get accustomed to giving it. Oh, it's a mock, it's a low stake situation. Don't get used to giving mocks, in the sense that don't try taking mocks lightly, and okay, this one is a bad score, next time will be higher. That's fine. If it's a bad score, that's completely understandable. It's understandable. But in every mock, try to bring out your best and try to pretend that it's the real clat, because that is how you will get your maximum learning out of every mock. Because 2 hours during your preparation journey is actually a very precious amount of time.
Correct.
Yeah. So those would be your don'ts, and your do's would be: do give mocks and do analyze them, and do be consistent with your preparation. This is not an exam that you can sort of. I mean, people do it. People absolutely do it. It's always possible to, even prepare in the last week and crack the exam if your natural skills are that good. But preparation is not about cracking the exam. It cannot be, because everyone who prepares doesn't crack the exam, and some people who do not prepare crack the exam. Preparation is about increasing the probability that you will crack the exam, increasing the probability that you will win at, like, you will get a score that is good enough to get you into your desired college. So to increase that probability, you have to make sure that you're consistent with your preparation. You prepare every day. So and you try to do something every day for it.
It was very nice to hear all of these from you. One question that I would ask you is how Lighting Dreams has helped you with your preparation throughout your CLAT journey. Since you have been associated with this journey for the past 2 years, I guess. So,
Yeah.
how long have you taken help from Lighting Dreams and how they have helped you?
Yeah, I've been a part of the Lighting Dreams WhatsApp group since my first CLAT, and I think the quality of material shared, the list of GK topics, all of that was very helpful because it was always accessible. I never had to think about, oh, I will have to sit down and look for this piece of material now. Whatever I needed to prepare was present, and I could use that material in a way that was sort of required to prepare for it. And also, all the mentors that were present in Lighting Dreams, Aryan sir, Kanish sir, were very helpful throughout the journey. I used to speak to them regularly and have them present as mentors and as people who guided me through the Clat journey.
Very enlightening to hear all of this, and I'm sure Kanishk and Aryan are also very happy hearing you speak here at this point. Last question. I'm sure you would have an answer for this. So the question is, what are you looking forward to? Like, how do you plan to go about law school? Way forward.
Huh. Uh, what do I look forward to? Most importantly, trying to get my driving license as soon as possible. Uh, I think an important part of my college life, because I genuinely believe that law school would be a better environment for me rather than a competitive exam, given that I have friends who are in law school. Uh, my girlfriend is in law school as well. She's in the first year. So, as far as I've seen their experience, reading as much as possible, trying to write papers, trying to prepare for tests, uh, is a better environment for me than preparing for a competitive exam, because this environment gets anxious because it's about one big day, the competitive exam preparation, but here it's more about the general experience of it all. So I would be more suited to that environment. So I genuinely think I'll be having an easier time in law school, and I want to have as much fun as possible while learning. So that's what I look forward to.
It was very nice having you here, and it was extremely wonderful to listen to you. Congratulations on your score and rank, and all the best for your law school journey.
Thank you so much. It was very nice speaking to you too.